You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All right, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and I'm joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Getting ready for Championship Monday for my Bulldogs, so I'm excited about that. I want to say I'm looking forward to this weekend. I'm looking forward to a couple games this weekend in the NFL, right? Like most, I'm not paying any attention to unless I have some sort of action on that game. The rest, they're just going to kind of take place, right? So here we are, week 18. We have made it through the regular season NFL gauntlet. And out of the entire slate this weekend, there's about 4 games that have any sort of like meaningful consequence to them. So pick and choose wisely. It's okay to get some honeydews done and just kind of keep the game in the background, that type of thing. So enjoy it if you are a fan. If you're an innocent bystander, if you will, try and get whatever out of it that you're looking for. But be careful betting these games, right? A lot of players aren't playing, a lot of backups, a lot of crazy. I shouldn't say crazy. A lot of games with really no prop action whatsoever. So
Right.
If you're looking for player props, do your due diligence. Don't just start throwing cash down because it's the only one you see. I filled out our sheet, off of what I think is possible. By no means am I betting every single one of these things that I'm listing out tonight. There's my warning, my PSA announcement, Derek, that I told you I'd put in.
There you go.
But overall, I am looking forward to it. We get on to the playoffs, some real meaningful football, and, away we go. This is our last Friday night of the season, so thank you for everyone who's been hanging out with us. Hopefully you've been able to increase your bank account, and, off we are. Here we go.
Absolutely. So, just kind of you mentioned it there. We're last Friday here. So programming note, you are 100% correct. This is the last Friday show that we're going to do until we get into next season here in the 2023 season. So, we'll still be coming live once a week. We go live all year round during the off season. So we'll be live over on the YouTubes, on the Twitter, on the Twitch, all those good places. Make sure you subscribe to that. And we'll be going through it, and just like we do every year, we're going to start breaking down draft prospects here coming up real soon. We're going to have a lot of fun with some of the games that we play over the course of the playoffs there, and some of our challenges that we do. We're also going to be doing a lot of the prop bets for the old SB. That's always a lot of fun when we do that one. So we'll be making sure we do that as well. Make sure that you're joining us for that, and join us along as we get you ready to go for the NFL draft during the offseason. Get you ready for your Dynasty League drafts here as well, especially those rookie drafts coming up, and then really get you ready for draft season coming up as we really go through all of these teams and we go break down. Yeah, we go deeper than I think anybody else I see out there, right? Like when we go through these things, we're talking 3rd, 4th string running backs in some cases on all 32 of the teams, talking 4th, 5th wide receivers in some cases. We even get down into the 2nd or 3rd string tight end in some of these deals. So we go deeper than just about anybody else out there does. So make sure you're joining us over the off season there as well. And, getting you guys ready to go for your drafts, whether it be dynasty, whether it be redraft next year. And come along on the ride with us. You make sure that you're following the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Good Old Boys FF, and then head over to the YouTube channel. Click that subscribe button on the YouTube channel, goodoldboys.com /at Good Old Boys FF. Well, that was a mouthful that I messed up there, but it's all right. It's all right. You know where to find us, and make sure that you're joining us there. But Kevin, without any further ado, should we just start jumping into some of these games here and start breaking these things down?
Yep, let's get after it, man.
All righty. And guys, if you have any questions out there in the chat, make sure you're posting them. If you happen to have one of these Week 18 championship games, throw out your questions. Let's make sure we get you guys ready to go here for your championship. Try and bring home those cash and trophies here. First matchup, we got the Kansas City Chiefs, the Las Vegas Raiders. Chief favored by 9. The over-under on this one, 52.5. What are your thoughts here?
I like the over. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. However, I do have the Las Vegas Raiders covering the 9. Kansas City, as much as they want the number 1 seed, they are going to be playing for that. They're not going to be taking unnecessary risks. They just want the victory, right? So no unnecessary shots. But I think the Raiders are going to keep them honest. Jarrett Stidham having such familiarity with this Josh McDaniels offense. This Raiders team did look different against the Niners, right? The Niners were clearly expecting one thing, and they got something completely different. So it was very interesting to see. Devontae Adams was amazing last week. Jarrett Stidham was amazing. And I think some of that continues, right? The Chiefs' defense is susceptible against the pass. They've given up 2 big games to Russell Wilson, who really hasn't been able to do anything else all season long. So a high-scoring affair, Chiefs on the money line, but the Raiders cover.
I like that. I do think the Chiefs have just been bad against the spread all season long, right? They're 6-10 against the spread this season. I don't see that really changing. So I do like the Raiders to cover. I think this is, Kansas City wins this thing by a touchdown. That's what I think this one's going to be. I do like the over on this. This one has a feeling that both of these teams could easily end up, in a little bit of a shootout here, going back and forth on this one. But a prop that I saw out here on this one that didn't make any sense to me was Patrick Mahomes. They actually set his prop at 330.5 passing yards. I'm taking the under on that one. I could see if Kansas City gets up big on this one, they're going to be pulling guys. Like they've at that point, right? If the victory's in hand, there's a good chance that you see the stars for Kansas City on the sidelines getting prepped and ready to go for either a bye or a week 1 or a first playoff round there.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That's a little bit too high for this game. I could see it set at 305, and I think that might be intriguing. But the fact that it's at 330 is too rich for my blood as well. So I like your call on that. The one that I am going with, I'm taking Jarrett Stidham over 235.5. With the way that he just torched the San Francisco 49ers defense, I think he's going to be able to have similar success against this Kansas City defense. Devontae Adams is a beast. We know that he can beat any single one of those defensive backs that Kansas City has thrown at him. So it's just a matter of, can the offensive line hold up long enough for Stidham to let it rip? I think they can, and it's going to lead to a big passing day for Stidham, over 235.5.
I like that one. Let's go ahead and hit the next matchup here. Saturday night game. We've got the Titans and the Jaguars. The Jaguars are favored by 6.5. Over under on this one is 40. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking Tennessee to cover here. That being said, I have the Jags on the money line. I think they win this game. I just think I think Tennessee's able to keep it within 6, right? This Jaguars team is young. They're unfamiliar. They're in unfamiliar waters, right? Tennessee, as bad as they've been, especially over the last 6-7 weeks of the season, the bulk of this team has been in the playoffs each of the last couple of years. So they understand what these big win games look like, or these big games must wins look like. So I think they're able to keep it competitive. The problem is the quarterback play, right? We cannot trust the quarterback play. I do not think Josh Dobbs is the answer. And quite frankly, the NFL is hoping Jacksonville wins this game, because you don't want a Josh Dobbs-led Tennessee Titans team in the playoffs. Trevor Lawrence is a much sexier story, and the Jaguars turn around than Tennessee limping themselves into the playoffs. So the NFL is hoping for the Jags. I think they get it.
Well, not only limping in there, but limping in there with a home field first round playoff game. Like that's something nobody wants to see is this to take place at Tennessee with the way that they've been playing down the stretch. No, thank you.
Could you imagine a Baltimore Tennessee game where Lamar Jackson can't play? And then you have Josh Dobbs going up against Brett Hundley or whichever Joe they stick at quarterback in Baltimore. It's just going to be which offensive line can impose their will the most. It would be an ugly, ugly game. Like everybody would much rather see, Jacksonville, Baltimore, or Jacksonville, Cincinnati. If Cincinnati drops this game to Baltimore, right? Like they fall to that top wild card spot. So ugly, ugly potential coming from the repercussions of this game.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you. But I think you're onto something there. This is one of those that um, Tennessee can do enough with Derrick Henry. If they can get him going on the ground and keep the ball, keep some possession going, that kind of stuff, they can grind this thing out into a lower scoring affair where, they chew up possession and keep this as a 3-point game, which is ultimately where I see this one playing out, as Jacksonville wins by a field goal on this one. I do think that we see the over on this one. This one has very much of a 23-20 type of feel to me on this one. That's kind of where I see this one playing out at. So I've got the over on that one, and you actually called the prop on this one. I'm just going to tag along, so I'll let you handle the prop call.
Oh, fair enough. So we both really like Christian Kirk's receiving prop in this game, over 62.5 receiving yards. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have to lean on him and Evan Ingram a lot in this game. ETN's going to have a tough game, guys. Remember, Tennessee is really good, against running backs. They have been all season long. I think that trend continues. So as good as ETN played last week, I think he struggles this week, and that's okay, because in pairing up with that, I think Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram both have a good game, but I like the Kirk prop just a slight bit more.
Right. Well, and going back to our Tuesday show, right? Like I called for ETN to be my pine of the week. So I'm right there with you. I think that he is going to struggle on this one. And I do like that call on Christian Kirk. Let's go ahead and head right on over into the Sunday games here. We've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons squaring off. The Falcons are favored by 4, over under on this one, 40. Thoughts on this game?
I'm taking Atlanta in this game, Derek. I think that Tampa Bay's not playing for anything. They wrapped up the division. They know they're the 4th seed. There's nothing they can do to increase or decrease that. Get Tom Brady, Godwin, Mike Evans some rest, right? Like, so they might come out and play till halftime, right? Like, play till halftime, get a good sweat going, just to make sure they stay loose and kind of in rhythm. And then you pull them. Then you're on to Dallas, right? Like, that's what you're preparing for. You're preparing for a home game against Dallas, a team that Tampa Bay has had success against here the past couple seasons. So I'm not having big expectations for this game. I do think Atlanta finds a way to not only win this game, but I think they cover. I think they win by about a touchdown. Tampa Bay's just not going to care come the end of the game. So with that said, I also expect a low-scoring game. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of points. So I'm taking the under, but I'm taking Atlanta to cover as well.
Right, and here's even a crazier thing, right? So realistically, if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in your home game, you know that you're getting this whoever comes in second in the NFC East. Like, that's where that comes down to. Because if Philly loses this game, Dallas wins the division. And how scary would that be if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers having to face the Philadelphia Eagles in the first round of the playoffs there? Like, that's a crazy proposition there, and a crazy
Tampa
thing
Bay would much rather have Dallas. They match up really well against the Cowboys, as we've seen. It was quite possibly Tampa Bay's best game of the year was week 2 against the Cowboys. So, they want Dallas comparative to Philadelphia. I don't know that any team really wants a piece of Philadelphia right now, especially with Hurts coming back. It doesn't matter that they've dropped the last 2 with him being injured. That team is high-powered and is going to cause some damage here running through the playoffs.
Absolutely. And I think you're right. Like, Tampa Bay, and as banged up as Tampa Bay has been, like, they may have those guys sitting even earlier than halftime. Like, we may see some of these guys not even roll up, not even get dressed for the game on that. The only thing that I could see potentially really getting some of those guys going is if they have some of those incentives, catches or yards, touchdowns, some of those types of things built into the contracts, those incentive-based milestones in those contracts that, bonus dollars coming in. That could be where I see some of these Buccaneers playing. And outside of that, I think that a lot of them will probably sit. They work on getting healthy for that first round there. Even when Tampa's been, playing because they got something to play with, they haven't been good on offense, haven't been getting many points up there. Atlanta, kind of the similar story. So I like your call of the under, but I do think Atlanta, I'm right there with you. I think that they do find a way to cover that 4. And I do like a Tyler Algier anytime touchdown. May not happen in the first half here, but I think that we see him get that sometime in this game.
Yeah, this was one of those games where props were hard to come by, right? So we're trying to give you something, some of our thoughts behind the game. Just, again, PSA announcement. That being said, you took Tyler Algier. I went a running back on the other side. I think Rachaad White finds a touchdown. I think Lenny's going to be the running back that they choose to sit. Being a veteran, they want to make sure he's fresh for the playoff run, playoff Lenny 2.0. So I think we'll see a lot of Rachaad White in the second half. And I think he does find a way to sneak into the end zone.
Absolutely. All right, we're on to Buffalo. The New England Patriots heading over to the Buffalo Bills. Bills favored by 7. The over-under on this one, 43.5. What are your thoughts here?
This was a tough one for me. I about took New England to cover just because I feel like Buffalo has their attention's been elsewhere, right? With the situation that's gone on there with kind of, seeing one of their teammates down, but then everything kind of took a turn for the best today, right? So with that, I changed my tune a little bit. I think Buffalo's going to go out and really try and set the tone. They know what the stipulations that the NFL's kind of set forth with neutral games, or if they're able to win and Kansas City happens to lose to the Raiders or anything like that, they get home field outright, that type of thing. So I do think Buffalo's going to come out and try and send a message early. So I'm going to take Buffalo, and I'm going to say they cover the 7 points. I could see this being a push, but I'm going to take the fact that they cover it.
Right. I think you're probably onto something there. For anybody who's out there watching the Sean McDermott or the Josh Allen press conference yesterday, they made it very, it was very apparent watching that their minds were elsewhere throughout the week, and having some of the calls that they said that they had with both DeMar Hamlin today and Mario Hamlin yesterday, it sounded like they got kind of re-energized and refocused, and they're ready to come out here and kind of win one for their guy here. And I think that's probably what they do. And I think that they come out to try and make a statement going into the postseason here. So I do like Buffalo to cover. I do like the over on this one. I think there's going to be a few points put up on this one. I do like Ramondre Stevenson to go over 46.5 rushing yards. He's been bottled up last few games. I think this is a game that we see him break out a little bit.
Fair enough. I think I'm going to take Stephon Diggs over 77.5. It's a little bit of a bigger number. Basically right on par with where he's been. New England has given up points to star wide receivers this year. Excuse me. And I think for Buffalo to really jump out and over the top, they need a big, big presence from Diggs and Allen there in that first half to kind of start running away with this, and then potentially be able to sit guys, mid fourth quarter as they prepare for the playoffs.
Absolutely. All right, let's go ahead and head on over to Minnesota, Chicago. The Vikings and Bears squaring off. Vikings favored by 8, over under 43 on this one. What are your thoughts?
All right. Point of note. On the FanDuel betting site, you can get Minnesota at 5.5. I like the 5.5 a lot. Mm-hmm. I like the 8 because we know Fields isn't going to play. But if I can get it, if I can essentially buy down points without having to buy them down, I'm all about that. So I like them at 8, but if you go to the FanDuel booking or Sportsbooks app, you can get Minnesota at 5.5, which I like even more. And with all that said, I'm going to take the under because I don't think Chicago is going to have any offensive influence in this game whatsoever.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. So, Minnesota's been been kind of the kings of 1-score games all season long, and the fact that the line is set at 2-score games makes me a little leery. I do like that you found that over at FanDuel, though, for the 5.5. But I do think that Minnesota finds a way to cover this thing. They are playing for quite a bit here, right? Their seeding is very much determined by the outcomes this weekend here as well. They could get as high as the 2nd seed, dropped and all the way down to the 2nd, 3rd seed is really what they're playing for. So home field advantage for not just this week, but the following week in the divisional games there. So,
and they could end up the 4th, right? Mm-hmm. No, they can't. No.
Tampa Bay's
the 4th. Drop below Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's 4. So,
right.
But that 2 seed does mean a lot. Yes, you have to play week 1, but you're getting a home game in week 2 of the playoffs, right? The third seed, there's no guarantee. Maybe you're home and then on the road, all the things. So Minnesota plays better at home. So I completely agree with you, Derek.
Right. And not only that, if you're, the 2 seed, you're getting the 7th seed in there versus the 6th seed. But yeah, where that really comes in is like you just mentioned, week 2. Are you playing at home or you have to go somewhere else? And so, right, like you think about that, there's a good chance that with the 7th seed that you're getting you could get the Seahawks, you could get the
Packers.
You could get the Packers, or you could get the Lions. Right, like the Packers and Lions a little bit more scary than the Seahawks. The Seahawks who've kind of stumbled down the stretch here, but yeah. So there's some interesting things at work and at play there, and so lots of things to still play for in this game here. So this is one of those that has a little bit more so than just looking on paper. But so I do think that you're right. There's not going to be many points put up on this one. I do think that Justin Jefferson, though, does find his way into the end zone on this one. So I'm taking a JJ anytime touchdown.
Fair enough. I'm taking an Alexander Madison anytime touchdown. I think this game does get out of hand here a little bit for Minnesota. With that being said, Dalvin Cook will sit. Madison will play more. It might be later in the game, so you might be sweating it just a little bit, but I do think Madison squeaks into the end zone sometime in the late 3rd to 4th quarter time frame.
I like it. Yeah, I can see that one. All right, let's go ahead and head on over to Baltimore and Cincinnati. The Bengals favored by 9. The over-under on this one, 39.5. What are your thoughts here?
I am taking Cincinnati to cover. They, another team fighting for possible number 1 seed, depending on if Kansas City and Buffalo lose. There you go. Here comes Cincinnati. So they're definitely fighting for that, possibly the 2 seed, depending on how things shake out. So there is a lot to be at stake here for Cincinnati, anywhere from 1, 2, or 3 seed, or potentially if they lose this game, they drop all the way to the 5th. So then they're on the road. So plenty to play for in this game. With Lamar Jackson not playing, the offensive struggles that Baltimore has had, I do not think that this defense can contain what Cincinnati has to offer. So I think Cincinnati starts to go roughshod here and really kind of walks away with this game.
Yeah, I think you're right. Then the last thing that they want to do is have to go into, that 5th seed versus, they're looking pretty much like they're going to be kind of that 3 seed when it's all said and done. That's where, I think that they'll probably finish with a win on this one based on some of these other games on how I think they're going to play out. So I think they'll probably be the 3 seed, but there's a lot, you'd far rather would be the 3 seed than coming into the 5 seed. And the way things could shake out is if they drop all the way down to the 5 seed, they could have to play Baltimore again in the first round of the playoffs at Baltimore. So take care of business.
No. It'd be Tennessee or Jacksonville.
You're right. Well,
Baltimore can't get 4. The winner of this game gets the 3 at worst.
Gotcha. I was reading something that because if Baltimore wins this, they both finish with 11 wins on this. Baltimore actually would win it, I believe, based off of divisional percentages.
Yeah. And so it drops Cincinnati to 5.
Right, and
5 plays the 4.
You're right. But it's because of Tennessee and Jacksonville. Neither one of them can get high enough to. Yeah. Okay.
See.
Okay. All right. I'm with you now. I was lost in a thought. Thank you.
Nope, you're good.
Okay.
And really, that's not the worst 5 matchup that you could get. But again, this Jacksonville team's been pretty scary here lately. Like, they've done a lot of really good things. So the Jacksonville game's not the greatest, but I mean, heck, if Tennessee wins that game, Cincinnati against Tennessee, I think is a bloodbath. Like, I think
yes.
I think Cincinnati goes on the road favored by 7.5.
Yes.
Against Tennessee in the playoffs.
Yes. I mean, that's one of those that could be Cincinnati puts up a basketball score kind of thing with Tennessee's secondary.
Yeah.
And anyway. Yeah, not a so yeah, let's just root for Cincinnati to win here, root for the Jaguars to win and avoid that scenario altogether. All right, I like it. But yeah, I think you're right. I think Cincinnati takes care of business. I think we see the over, and I like Joe Mixon's over 50.5 rushing yards.
So I'm taking T. Higgins under 67.5. T. Higgins spent a ton of time at the hospital this week and really did not leave Dwayne Hillman's side, right? All week long were kind of the reports. So it's not that he's checked out, but his mind was definitely elsewhere, being, the receiver that got tackled when all this went down. I'm not saying Higgins is at fault, but on a human level, he's been struggling with this. With that being said, I wouldn't be surprised if Burrow tries to get him involved early to just kind of get him back in the swing of things. But ultimately, I think Higgins falls just short of this. Like, I could see him with 62 yards or something like that as Jamar Chase takes over. I just didn't like the 67.5 number, so I'm taking Higgins in the under this week.
All right, I like it. Let's go ahead and head to our next matchup here. And we've got the graphics wrong here, but we got the Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts here. Colts favored by 2.5. Over under on this one's 38. Thoughts on this one?
The Colts are terrible right now. I'm taking the Texans. The only thing that could possibly be thrown out in this game, right, is if the Texans lose, they're guaranteed the number one pick. So there's a little bit of gamesmanship in this. I am not betting this game. I don't want to come anywhere near this game because of all the weird things. And yeah, the NFL doesn't tank, but going into a game that if you pull your starters, the season's over, you're letting the young guys, get some NFL reps and that type of thing to kind of spin it that way in week 18. No one's going to question it, but it's for the number one seed. So I'm taking Houston to cover for this exercise. I am not betting this game, just so we're perfectly clear.
Yeah, I don't know. This is one of those that I'm going to have a hard time forcing myself to go back through and watch the replay of this thing, even on the condensed version.
No plans.
Just because I tend to watch all of the games on that one just so I can see all the plays. But yeah, I don't know that I'm going to force myself to watch this one back on even condensed replay where it goes really fast and it's like a half-hour time frame. So I'm probably going to pass on that one, but I think you're right. Houston has just been scrappy down the stretch, and I think that continues here. I do think that we see just enough points put up on both sides for us to clear that 38. That's just a really low number, and I am not even going to throw out anything venturing even an anytime touchdown thought here. Because quite frankly, this is not a game I really want any part of. So
I'm going to throw out a Zach Moss anytime touchdown just because Houston's been so bad against running backs. Outside of that, I'm not really looking for anything in this game. It's just so unattractive, right? So, it sounds terrible, but yes, we've talked about it. We've covered it, and that's about all.
Yeah, and even then it wasn't one of those that was overly, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, gross. Anyway, moving on.
Next.
Next, we got the Jets. We got the Dolphins. Dolphins favored by 3. The over-under on this one's 37. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking the Jets, man. We're Joe Flacco's back in the saddle. Zach Wilson's backing up. Mike White's out with 5 broken ribs or whatever he told reporters. The Jets were good. They were a pass-happy team with Joe Flacco at the start of the season, and they were winning games, guys. They were winning games. Miami's trotting out Skylar Thompson, and the Jets got eliminated last week. What better way to kind of put to change some of the sour taste in your mouth than by making one of your divisional rivals eliminated from the playoffs. So I think that's what the Jets are going to do. They're going to go out and they're going to find a way to win this game with Joe Flacco, and they're going to knock Miami out of playoffs.
Yeah, I think Miami's got enough juice left in the tank here that we might see them go out and actually take care of business and win this one. That being said, the 3 feels about right. I think that the Dolphins win this thing by a field goal. I do think that we see the over. While Joe Flacco is back and the Jets tended to put up some points under Joe Flacco, yeah, I really just don't like the chances of them doing that with Joe Flacco throwing the ball 50 times, which knows what's going to happen with this Jets offense when it comes through on that one. So
Michael Carter is going to have a huge game.
Yeah, very well might.
A lot of receiving work, but Michael Carter, I think, is going to have a big game.
He very well might. But I'm going to take Miami. I'm going to take the over, and I'm going to take Tyreek Hill to have over 66.5 receiving yards in this one.
Fair enough. This game was a hard game to find some props on. I know you found the Hill one. I'm taking Garrett Wilson as an anytime touchdown, and I think I like that whether I could find props or not. I do believe that Flacco is just going to sit back. They're going to sling it. They're going to do anything they can to just try and ruin Miami's season, and that might be Flacco throwing it 50 times a game. So the more he throws, the more I like Garrett Wilson to find a way to fall into the end zone.
Very good. Very, very good. All right, let's go ahead and head on over to Carolina and New Orleans. The Panthers and the Saints taking on each other. Saints favored by 3.5, over under 42. Thoughts on this one?
New Orleans still seems to have some fight left in them. Carolina, I think, got the sails knocked out of them the way they played against Tampa Bay last week. So I do think that there's a hangover from that. So I'm going to say New England covers the 3.5. But I do think it's an under ultimately. Both these offenses are pretty inept when it comes to putting up lots and lots of points. So I'm taking the under on the total, but New Orleans covers.
Inept might be too nice of a word for that. So I'm going to take the under as well. This one has the feeling of this one very much could, I not going to surprise me to see this one end like 13-10. I could see it being that poorly of an offensive game. That being said, I think that Carolina keeps this thing to a field goal on that one. So the hook takes me off of New Orleans, and I'm going to call for Carolina. I'm going to call for the under. This one, again, was one that I didn't like any of the props coming through there. So let's just have some fun and call for a DJ Moore anytime touchdown.
There you go. Been playing much better since Sam Darnold took back over a quarterback.
Yes.
Sorry, it's my turn for my prop. I'm taking Chris Olave. He's going to cap off his rookie season with a touchdown. So Olave anytime touchdown.
All righty. Let's go ahead and head to the next matchup here. We've got the Browns and we've got the Steelers. Steelers favored by 2.5, over under in this one 40. Thoughts on this one?
Mike Tomlin finds a way to end this season above 500.
I remember a guy wearing this hat that said something like that many, many weeks ago, and have been on that bandwagon for a while.
You have been, right? Like, thinking about this after week 6, we would have all said no way. Like, the Steelers are just not going to do it. It's not their year. And here they are. They're sitting at 500. They have a chance to finish another season above 500. That would mean every single year Mike Tomlin has been a coach in Pittsburgh, they have a winning record. So, and there's even a outside shot of Pittsburgh sneaking into the playoffs. The Browns, on the other hand, don't have anything to play for. There's turmoil in the locker room. Jadeveon Clowney's obviously frustrated. Myles Garrett clapped back at him. The best thing that Cleveland has going is that Deshaun Watson's been able to kind of stay out of the limelight since he's returned as quarterback. He has improved every week, but ultimately the Steelers are fighting for something the Browns aren't, and I think Pittsburgh finds a way to win this game by a field goal.
Yeah, so I think in order for Pittsburgh to actually make the playoffs, both New England and Miami have to lose this thing, and I think that they get in, if I'm looking at this thing right.
Coincidentally, I have that happening.
I know you do. That's why I just notated that.
Unintentionally, guys. I didn't look at the playoff scenarios.
But yeah, because I'm looking at this, Miami has the tiebreaker over, or New England has the tiebreaker over Miami on the divisional record. New England wins the tiebreaker over Pittsburgh in a head-to-head type of scenario there. If New England loses and Miami wins, they get in because they have the tiebreaker over Pittsburgh on a head-to-head matchup. So if New England and Miami loses and Pittsburgh wins, Pittsburgh slides into the playoffs yet again. Oh my.
What a crazy story.
Yeah. Oh, I would have to go back and figure out what week I was saying that Pittsburgh and Mike Tomlin were going to pull that out. Because
no doubt, right? Because I'd be willing to put that you were probably, if not the first, one of the first in anybody who talks professional football saying that Mike Tomlin could make this happen.
because I know it was back when they were sitting at with 7 losses on the season, which I think there were 3-7 maybe. I think it was about week 10, week 11 that I started floating that thing on our show every week when I was calling for the Steelers to win. So anyway, we'll have to check the tape and see what that one looks like. But I do like Pittsburgh to win this thing. I do like them to cover the 2.5. I do like the over on this one. And I do like George Pickens to go over 35.5 receiving yards on this one.
Yeah, I'm taking Najee Harris over 69.5 rushing yards. Cleveland's been terrible against running backs.
Yes.
Harris is finally healthy. He has been playing much better the last 3-4 weeks. I think he's fallen into the end zone 6 out of the last 7 games, something like that. So if you don't like the rushing prop, I would also feel comfortable with the Najee Harris anytime touchdown based off of his performances here over the last month and a half or so. So you got a couple different Harris props you could look at, but either way, it spells Pittsburgh winning this game.
I like it. Let's go ahead and head to the Chargers and the Broncos. And the Broncos are favored by 3. The over-under on this one is 40. Thoughts on this one?
I took Denver. I guess I took Denver. I don't know. I mean, here's another game that's just the Chargers are in the playoffs, right? The Chargers know that they're sitting at the six hole, right? Like that is what it is. They're in the playoffs. They can't do anything about it really. Denver's trying to finish an abysmal season. It's going to be interesting to see if they get jacked up to try and finish this year on a high note, or if they've kind of packed it up and they're going to get blown out like they did on Christmas Day against the Rams. So I guess for whatever reason, I was thinking Denver covers the 3. I think that's a little dangerous. I could see possibly a push. This game went into overtime weeks ago there on their last Monday night game there against the Chargers. What was that, week 6, week 7, something like that? So we shall see how this looks, but I do think that there's a lot of professional pride on the defensive side for Denver. So if the Chargers aren't playing anybody, if they pull Herbert, if they pull Eckler, if they pull Williams and Allen or whatever, I think that this is possible. And realistically, I don't think the Chargers are going to keep any of their guys in this game very long. Maybe till halftime. Outside of that, because they don't have anything to play for, there's no sense in risking injury. So I'm taking Denver. I'm taking the under. 40 points is too much. They're not going to get there. Low scoring affair, 17-13, something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that we're going to see a lot of second stringers out there for the Chargers. That being said, I don't trust the Broncos. I can't bring myself to do it.
Which is perfectly reasonable.
Yes, but you did hit on some very interesting things of note there. One, the Broncos have never lost 13 games in a season in their history, right? Something tells me that there's got to be a lot of talk going on in that organization that we can't go down as the worst team in Broncos history here with 13 losses, right? It hasn't happened. So
they can.
Yes, they can. I think there's a lot of that going on there. I think there's a lot of that talk also going on that, quite frankly, we can't send over what I believe is going to be the 3rd or 4th overall pick to Seattle to get this guy named Russ that we're paying $250 million to over the next 5 years on that one as well. So, if they win, they lower that draft seat or that draft pick they're sending back over down there potentially there as well. So there's a lot of things there, but the Broncos, I do have to give it to them. They looked like a little different team after getting someone somewhat competent in the head coaching position, even if it's on an interim basis for one game. They looked like a different team there. I'm still going to go for the Chargers to go through to at least cover the spread on this. I'm going to take the over on this one. I think that we see just enough points put up in this one for us to get over that 40 mark. And I didn't like any props on this one at all.
I took Latavius Murray anytime touchdown because the Chargers aren't good against the run. So went with what I felt like was low-hanging fruit.
Fair enough. The low-hanging fruit would be if Russ plays under 1.5 passing touchdowns. That's my go-to anytime that I see the Broncos do. Although on a side note, Russell Wilson finally has more passing touchdowns on the season than he has bathrooms in his house. So there's a positive note.
It only took 17 weeks, and 17 weeks, and y'all heard it here first.
Did you see that they actually had a prop out there? Like there was a season long prop of how many weeks into the season before Russell Wilson had more passing touchdowns than bathrooms in his house. Jeez. Like that was a legitimate thing out there that I saw.
The crazy thing is, at the start of the season, we would have told you week 7.
At the latest.
Yeah, week 6, week 7, like, 2 a game, something like that. So maybe you play week 7, figuring he only has 1 because, you have a game where it's more run-oriented, something like that. And holy crap, here we are, week 17. A lot of plus odds on that one. So if you bet that.
Good for you.
And you picked week 17, kudos, sir, because I'm sure it was plus like 2,100.
Yeah, it was. Anyway, that's kind of silly when you think about a guy getting paid $50 million a year to have thrown 13 touchdowns through 17 weeks. Anyway, moving on. Giants, Eagles favored by 14. The over under is 43 on this one. What are your thoughts here?
Eagles. I'm taking the Eagles to cover. Jalen Hurts is back. They know that they need to win this game to have the number 1 seed, so they want to get this put out of the way in a hurry. Sounds like the Giants aren't really going to be playing anybody this game. So they have the opportunity to really jump out on it and then kind of coast through the second half. That is what I'm expecting as you kind of get Jalen Hurts back into the fold, with him presumably starting this game. So I'm going to take the Eagles to cover, to kind of get out ahead early, and the Giants to kind of just be stymied because they really don't have anything to play for this game. But overall, I am taking the under since the Giants don't have anything to play for in this game.
Right, I'm also going to take the under as well. I think that we could see this being a little bit lower scoring game to it as well. I don't like the Eagles covering a 2 touchdown spread here. So I'm going to call for the Giants to go out there and cover the 14, right? Like I could see them losing by 7, by 10. I don't see it being a 2 touchdown game. So I think the Giants do cover. I do think that the Eagles win this thing and they clinch that number 1 seed there. And you're right. The Giants really can't improve their playoff spot. They've already clinched. So like they are what they are there. But at the same time too, right? Like the Eagles, if they're up by 14, like I don't see them necessarily, if they're up by 14 in the 4th, I see them potentially pulling guys late in that one to start getting a rest and that kind of stuff going into that bye week, hopefully. So I do think the Giants find a way to cover. I do like Miles Sanders on the anytime touchdown. Again, not really a fan of any of the props in this game here.
I have an A.J. Brown anytime touchdown just because I think that they're going to get in sync early here before they pull everybody in the 3rd or 4th.
I like it. All righty, let's go ahead and hit up our next matchup here. We've got the Cardinals. We've got the Niners. Niners favored by 14.5, over under 39.5. What are your thoughts here?
I'm taking Arizona to cover, and I'm taking the under in this game. San Francisco is going to have a pretty good idea by halftime of whether they have a shot to improve their playoff seeding or if they're just going to be sitting in the 2-hole. The Minnesota game will be done and over with. The Cowboys game will be over with, correct? As I check my times on that game. No, the Cowboys game will not be over with. That Cowboys game is later, but the Eagles game kicks off at the same time. So they'll see where the Eagles are at. And the Cowboys are playing at the same time. So, good on the NFL schedule makers for making sure all those games are at the same time. But ultimately, I don't think it happens as far as San Francisco covering. I don't see a ton of points on this game. We'll see people pulled because they'll have a good idea of what is and isn't going on. And I find myself thinking that the Cardinals will find a way to backdoor cover this game.
Right. I think that's absolutely true. Right. And even if San Francisco wins by 2 touchdowns, that hook still gets you. So I think that Arizona finds a way to sneak inside 14 points on this thing. I do think we see just enough points to carry us to the over, right? Like 39.5 is a real low bar. We just saw what the Raiders and Stidham did last week, potentially, kind of opening the door as a showcase as to how to try and get around this Niners defense. It's been so dominant all season long. And so I think we could see some we could see enough points put up on this thing for us to carry to the over. Again, this is one that wasn't a big fan of the props, so called for a CMC anytime touchdown.
I'm taking Elijah Mitchell anytime touchdown. Got activated off of IR. I think CMC is going to get a little bit of a breather here as this game finishes up. So a lot of Elijah Mitchell. Think he's going to sneak into the end zone. Why the hell not?
All right, I like it. Let's go ahead and head on over to the Seahawks and the Rams. The over-under is 41.5. Seahawks are favored by 6. What are your thoughts here?
I'm taking the Rams to cover the 6. Seattle's been on a slump here lately. The Rams want nothing more than to spoil Seattle's party. I do think that they kind of get up for this game. The Rams have not laid over like I thought that they were going to. They've been trying to remain competitive. You're seeing more of a true version of Sean McVay's offense, which I think helps Baker Mayfield and Cam Akers both. So LA might end up losing this game, but it's not going to be by 6 or more.
No, the legend of Baker continues and grows. So, yeah, keep in mind, right? Like this is one of those we always kind of talk about, guys that, from a fantasy, you want guys that are playing for something, right? Like whether it's a contract incentive, whether it's whatever that looks like. Baker's playing for his career at this point, right? Like, can he put enough on film? Can he put enough out there to potentially try and get another job when this season's over, even if that's as a backup role somewhere else? Like, there's a lot to be said about a guy fighting for his job. And
I hear the Commanders are in the market for a quarterback. I
hear the Colts are too.
Right.
Baker might be cheap enough that the Broncos could bring him in and
no.
not have to.
No, we've already spent enough money on a quarterback. It doesn't matter if he only wants $1. It's too much.
Fair enough. At this point, though, could you honestly tell me that the Broncos offense would have been worse under Baker?
No, I don't know that it could have. No, I can't tell you that it would have been worse. But after this year, the Broncos have their first-round picks back. I mean, they have the Niners pick this year, which is, very end of it. But then they get their own pick next year. So right. At this point, if they suck next year too, at least they get their own draft pick to be able to reward themselves with.
Right. So that all that being said, I do like the Rams to cover the 6. I think the Rams can win this thing outright. And that's what I want to have happen because of the game going on Sunday night. And we'll get to that one here in a little bit. But I do think we see enough points to get to the over on this one. I'm not sure why I put my the prop that I have down here. So I'm going to say that I don't have a prop and we'll rock and roll without that one.
I'm going to take Van Jefferson over 38.5 receiving yards.
I like that one. All righty. We do have a couple of comments coming in there. Spear IT saying that the season is over for them. Yeah, that's always a stinker when the season ends.
Yeah, he had a lot of guys on that that Cincinnati Buffalo game. So I'm sorry it ended that way for you, man. I know a lot of us had some investment in that game, and from the fantasy perspective, it definitely was not the way we wanted the season to end. Right. And it's really unfortunate all the way around. But the good news is we'll help prepare you for next season, man. And then you don't have to dig yourself out of a hole.
Right. And the Spirit T also saying the biggest thing is that we got good news on tomorrow. Absolutely right. Like very happy. The positive news coming out of Cincinnati and coming out on the reports for him. Absolutely. Right. Like very happy that for that young man and his family there as well. Spirit T also saying, thank you guys for all the help this season. Really turned my fantasy year around. See y'all next year. Good news is, Spirit T, you don't have to wait for next year. We keep this thing going year round. We'll be keeping the Tuesday show going season round. If you play Dynasty, we'll have a whole lot of content coming for you for Dynasty draft picks, as well as we'll be doing what we do on every team, breaking down every fantasy option there over the offseason there as well. So you'll want to make sure that you tune into some of those. And as we get closer to the season, we go into some of my favorite episodes. We do some of those draft strategy ones, and we really start hammering home some of the different draft strategies to get folks ready to go for their draft there as well. So you don't have to wait till next season because we'll have off-season content for you year round there, Spirit IT. But always a fan of seeing you in the chat, and thank you very much for tuning in all of these episodes. Really appreciate it. All righty. Kevin, are we ready to hit this next matchup here?
Let's do it.
All right. We got the Cowboys. We got the Commanders. Cowboys favored by 7, over under 40. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking the Cowboys, and I'm taking the under. Sam Howell is going to be starting at quarterback for Washington. Dallas has something to play for. Washington does not, other than to just piss the Cowboys off. But when you're starting your rookie 5th-round pick, I like Dallas's chances, right? That pass rush is still nasty. They're trying to shore up some things there on the back end to make sure that they're playoff ready. So I think Dallas tries to come out and set the tone early, win this game comfortably by, I think probably by 10 is realistically what it's like. But I'm taking the under. So I'm thinking we're looking at something like 24-14 is probably going to be the final score of this game.
I think Dallas is going to come out and try and just put this thing away early, make a statement on this one. So I could see this one creeping on the over side of it, but I do think that Dallas covers at 7. Washington also, the sad thing is they're going to throw Sam Howell out there, right? Which I don't think he's going to have a very good game to begin with. But
they have no one to run the ball either.
That's where I was just going. Antonio Gibson had surgery, and they already ruled Brian Robinson out of this game, right? Like, I don't know who the Commanders are going to start back there for a running back, but it doesn't speak well to and one of those. It wouldn't surprise me at this point that they they shut down McLaurin, they shut down Jahan Dotson, Dotson, who's kind of struggled with injury a little bit this season. I could see them shutting him down. McLaurin, right? You don't want to necessarily send your guy out there that doesn't have really anything to play for, and you decide to do a big contract extension. So,
Cowboys points or Sam Howell completions?
I'm going to take Cowboy points.
I think I am too. And I don't think it's even that close. Like, the more I'm thinking about it, I can see him going 13 of 30.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of where it is, and the Cowboys just run rough shot, right? Like, I mean, we can see, it could 28-10. I mean, that's a possible score too, and then just blow the doors off of this. So, I like that too. Cowboys points over Sam Howell completions.
I like it. I was gonna say even on your prop where you originally were, or your original score you threw out there with 24-14. Like, I don't know, Sam Howell's gonna even get to 20, so that was an easy Cowboy points for me. So,
yeah, no, that's true.
Absolutely. All right, let's hit up our last matchup here. The last call that we're going to make here on the Friday night fantasy football lights here for 2022. We got the Lions. We've got the Packers. The Packers favored by 4.5. The over-under on this one is 49. What are your thoughts here?
I'm taking Detroit to keep it closer than 4.5. This team's been scrappy. Neither team has been that great defensively. The Packers did get up to really kind of shut Jefferson down, but I think that's more the exception than the rule. So that being said, I do expect points in this game. So I'm taking the over, but I'm taking Detroit. I think it's a 3-point game here, but very entertaining game to end the NFL regular season.
The Packers had better watch out for their kneecaps. That's all I can say is I think Detroit's coming out swinging. So I do like Detroit to certainly cover, the points on that one, right? 4.5. Like this one, I think this one's going to be a field goal game when this thing's all said and done. I get that Aaron Rodgers is darn near undefeatable in November and December at Lambeau. I get all of that, right? We've seen it play out time and time and time again. This Detroit team is scrappy. They're gritty. I think that they're going to do everything they can to make it into the playoffs here. And they'll know whether or not they really have something to play for when it's all said and done, right? Before this game ever kicks off. Because if Seattle wins, Seattle's in, right? Regardless of what the Lions do. If the Packers win, the Packers are in. So Detroit will know whether or not it's got something to really play for in this thing when it's all said and done, regardless of the outcome of this game, right? But that being said, 49 is a big point total. The Lions have not been as prolific of an offense on the road, so I think that we're going to see a lower scoring game here. Not going to surprise me to see this one end. Let's call it 24-21, I think is where we probably see this one come out to play. And so I'm going to take the under. I do like DeAndre Swift to go over 30.5 rushing yards.
Fair enough. I have DJ Chark going over 32.5 receiving yards.
I can see that. I like that. All righty. Well, that's gonna make the call there for the end of our Friday Night Lights smorgasbord and calls for the season. Any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
If you're playing a Week 18 championship, good luck. If you are not, win, lose, or draw, stay tuned. We will help you reload and get ready for the 2023 season because fantasy football never stops, right? Do not go into hibernation mode. There's tons of articles and data and things to look at to always be improving. And if you are not getting better, you are falling behind.
Absolutely. That's a nice little bow on it. And make sure that you're tuning in for those off-season episodes. A lot of fun. We'll have lots of content going through all the different socials, as well as the live stream every Tuesday night. So make sure you're tuning in for those. It's always a lot of fun. You can find us on those socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Good Old Boys FF. You can find the live stream during the off-season here Tuesday nights on Twitter under that same old handle, twitch.tv/goodoldboysff. And the best place to support this independent podcast is to head over to YouTube, youtube.com/@goodoldboysff. Click that subscribe button, ring the bell. You'll get the notifications when we're dropping all of that content over the off season for you as well. That's going to do it for us. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodle.